August 13th, 1944. Soviet reconnaissance scouts moved with an almost unnatural caution, their eyes fixed on a German tank frozen in the heart of a Polish village. 69 tons of steel armor stood in absolute silence. No gunfire, no engine roar, not a single sound disturbed the heavy air. When the Red Army soldiers finally ventured inside, a profound disbelief settled over them. The tank was fully stocked with ammunition, its fuel tanks brimmed, its mechanisms pristine and operational. The crew of this steel behemoth had simply vanished, abandoning what was considered the Third Reich's most vital, most secret machine. Only months prior, this very tank had been hailed as the invincible king of the battlefield, a weapon Adolf Hitler himself had called his ultimate hope. Germany had poured colossal wartime resources into its creation, a desperate gamble amidst a collapsing front. Yet, here it stood, discarded, seemingly worthless. What catastrophic miscalculation had befallen this iron giant? Why did German tank crews choose flight over fighting in what was arguably the most powerful tank of the Second World War? The saga of the King Tiger began in August of 1942. At that time, Germany still advanced with an almost arrogant confidence, pushing deeper towards Stalingrad, their sights set on the oil fields of the Caucasus. It seemed a perplexing paradox. Why would a seemingly victorious nation, already boasting the formidable Tiger I heavy tank and preparing the Panther for production, require yet another heavy tank? The answer lay not in a new chassis, but in a singular, devastating weapon. The 6th Department of the Wehrmacht's Armaments Office had received a directive: create a mobile platform for the groundbreaking 88mm cannon, featuring an unprecedented 71 caliber barrel length. This weapon possessed the chilling capability to pierce any known armor at distances utterly unreachable by enemy fire. The German High Command envisioned a sniper tank, a predator designed to obliterate opposing vehicles long before they could even register a threat. This was an exceptional, almost inverted approach to tank design. Typically, engineers first conceptualized the vehicle, then meticulously selected suitable armament. Here, the process was flipped entirely. The gun came first. The tank was merely a carriage, a monstrous conveyance for this unparalleled artillery piece. This very decision would, in time, become the genesis of most of the King Tiger's inherent flaws. Two relentless rivals immediately plunged into the race to forge this new tank. On one side stood the design bureau of the legendary Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, the visionary behind iconic automobiles and a personal confidant of Adolf Hitler. Arrayed against him was the firm Henschel & Son, whose chief engineer, Erwin Aders, carried the unofficial moniker Papa of Tigers for his instrumental role in creating the original Tiger. Ferdinand Porsche approached the task with the expansive vision of a genius unburdened by the wartime financial constraints that crippled lesser minds. He proposed no fewer than 5 distinct tank variants, each boasting different power plants, gasoline and diesel engines, and diverse transmission systems, from electric to hydraulic. Even the turret placement varied, with both front and rear configurations explored. Porsche's designs were a testament to engineering audacity, yet they simultaneously instilled a deep apprehension within the military establishment due to their sheer complexity and exorbitant cost. His ambition, while breathtaking, threatened to become an insurmountable burden, a harbinger of the very problems that would plague Hitler's last hope. The electromechanical transmission, a hallmark of Porsche's audacious vision for the new heavy tank, demanded vast quantities of copper, a material already critically scarce within the Third Reich's war economy. This dependency alone introduced a profound vulnerability, a strategic Achilles heel in a machine designed for total war. Its longitudinal torsion bar suspension while undeniably original in concept, carried a heavy burden of questionable reliability. Such innovation, in the crucible of combat, often proved a perilous gamble. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, blinded by an unwavering belief in his own genius, committed a fatal error. Long before the official results of the design competition were announced, he preemptively ordered the production of 50 turrets for his tank project. This was not merely confidence, it was an act of profound hubris, a gamble rooted in a past success that had been more a matter of political favor than engineering superiority. He had displayed precisely this same overreaching self-assurance during the development of the first Tiger tank, and on that occasion, his close personal friendship with the Führer had shielded him from any repercussions. Such a powerful patron could, it seemed, bend the very laws of physics and logistics. Across the drafting tables, Erwin Aders of the Henschel firm pursued a diametrically opposed strategy. His approach was grounded in pragmatism, not revolutionary fervor. There would be no radical solutions, no perilous experiments. Instead, Henschel focused on maximum standardization with the already successful Panther tank, incorporating proven components and assemblies and meticulously adhering to every requirement laid out by the procuring authority. It was a philosophy of calculated risk aversion, a stark contrast to Porsche's grand, untested designs. Aders deliberately abandoning the Panther's design, which offered far superior ballistic protection by deflecting incoming shells more effectively than flat plates. For the tank's heart, he selected the Maybach 700-horsepower gasoline engine, a power plant already well established and readily available within the industrial infrastructure. The running gear featured 9 double road wheels with internal shock absorption, arranged in a complex interleaved pattern. This very chessboard arrangement of the road wheels would play an unexpectedly pivotal role in the project's fate. The intricate suspension scheme had in fact been personally developed by Dr. Kniepkamp, the esteemed director of the Wa-Proof, the very department responsible for commissioning the new tank. Henschel's shrewd incorporation of Kniepkamp's invention into their design was a subtle, yet powerful act of deference, clearly earning the project significant goodwill and invaluable sympathy among the military officials responsible for the final decision. It was a masterclass in strategic engineering and political maneuvering. The first model of the Henschel tank was unveiled to Adolf Hitler in mid-January of 1943. The Führer expressed his satisfaction. Prototypes were ready for rigorous testing. The victory, undeniably, belonged to the Henschel firm. Yet, Hitler, ever loyal to his old friend, did not forget Dr. Porsche. The Führer issued a direct command. The 50 turrets Porsche had so confidently manufactured in advance were to be mounted onto the chassis of the victorious Henschel design. This decree transformed the first 50 King Tigers into strange hybrids, formidable bodies crowned with a foreign head. And this foreign head would very soon reveal its deadly, inherent flaw. Porsche's turret design was characterized by its distinctive rounded shape and seemingly robust frontal armor. At first glance, it appeared even more heavily protected than the alternative Henschel variant. However, once deployed on the brutal battlefields of the Eastern Front, a terrifying design miscalculation came to light. A direct hit from an enemy shell to the lower part of the turret's frontal armor would, instead of deflecting harmlessly away as intended, create a catastrophic ricochet effect. The shell would bounce directly downwards, striking the much thinner roof of the tank's hull. The crew, trapped within, would receive a deadly gift from a direction they were utterly unprepared for. Beyond this structural nightmare, the Porsche turret could only accommodate 77 rounds of ammunition, compared to the Henschel turret's 84. In the relentless grind of prolonged combat, this seemingly minor difference in capacity could spell the difference between survival and annihilation. Furthermore, Early examples of the Porsche turret featured a specialized access hatch located in the lower section of the design, a detail that introduced another potential point of vulnerability or operational complexity. The tale of these early King Tigers, born from a fusion of pragmatic engineering and misplaced loyalty, stands as a stark testament to the perilous interplay between ambition, political influence, and the unforgiving realities of war. The foreign head, a symbol of unchecked confidence, ultimately exposed the devastating consequences of a design compromised by hubris, forever marking the early years of a tank meant to be invincible. An initial design feature, intended to simplify the ejection of spent shell casings, proved to be a critical vulnerability. This seemingly ingenious solution, a small aperture cut into the formidable steel hide, significantly compromised the armored protection of the early models. Engineers quickly recognized the flaw. Subsequent production runs saw this opening welded shut, and eventually it was entirely eliminated from the tank's blueprint. Beginning with the 51st machine, German engineers transitioned to a new turret design developed by the esteemed Krupp firm and manufactured by Henschel. This redesigned turret represented a significant leap forward. Its construction boasted a deceptive simplicity, yet it eradicated all vulnerable openings along its sides. The frontal armor, a crucial shield against enemy fire, received a completely re-engineered geometry, effectively preventing the infamous ricochets that could send shells plunging into the tank's roof. This overhaul not only increased the ammunition capacity, but also dramatically enhanced the overall survivability of the crew and machine. Yet a curious detail surrounds this titan of steel. The designation King Tiger, a name that evokes images of regal power and battlefield dominance, was never officially adopted by the Wehrmacht. It was an unofficial moniker, rarely used by the Germans themselves. Their records referred to the machine as the Panzerkampfwagen Tiger Ausführung B, or simply the Tiger B, sometimes even the Tiger II. The true etymology of Königstiger, when precisely translated from German, speaks not of royalty, but of the majestic Bengal tiger. Despite this linguistic nuance, Germany's adversaries, perhaps seeking a more dramatic and imposing title for the formidable foe they faced, chose the grander, more fearsome King Tiger. That name, imbued with a sense of overwhelming power, is the one that ultimately echoed through history. Serial production of this new tank began in the early months of 1944. The aspirations of the German High Command were staggering in their ambition. Plans called for the manufacture of nearly 1,300 machines, with a projected assembly rate of 120 tanks rolling off the lines each month. These formidable numbers were meant to forge a powerful armored fist, a decisive force capable of shattering Allied offensives and decisively turning the tide of a war that was slowly, inexorably slipping away. But fate, a capricious and brutal mistress, had an entirely different script. On October 20, 1943, at the Aries Proving Ground, German engineers proudly showcased their new behemoths to the military leadership. The demonstration was a testament to engineering prowess, a moment of fleeting triumph. Just 3 days later, the sky above Germany darkened. 569 Allied bombers, a relentless aerial armada, unleashed their deadly payload upon the city of Kassel. Within that city lay the sprawling factories of the Henschel firm, the sole manufacturer of these nascent King Tigers. The inferno ignited by this devastating bombardment raged for an agonizing 7 days. The sheer scale of the destruction was apocalyptic. An estimated 10,000 civilians and wounded soldiers trapped within the city's hospitals perished in the merciless flames. 150,000 people were rendered homeless, their lives irrevocably shattered. The once bustling factory complexes, the very heart of King Tiger production, were reduced to nothing more than charred, twisted ruins. The ambitious plans for 120 tanks per month, once a beacon of hope for the German war effort, crumbled into dust. The Germans were forced to rebuild their production capabilities almost entirely from scratch. Every step was a struggle. On average, the assembly of a single King Tiger consumed approximately 14 days. The vast assembly halls, once envisioned to hum with the simultaneous construction of dozens of tanks, now rarely held more than 10 machines at any given moment. By the summer of 1944, the pace had been painstakingly, marginally increased, but the relentless, crushing blows of Allied air power continued. Subsequent bombing raids again halved the already struggling output. Instead of the projected 1,300 tanks, the Germans, throughout the entire production run, managed to construct only around 490 machines. Parallel to this catastrophic decline in production volume, an insidious erosion of quality began to plague the tanks that did manage to roll off the lines. Germany was rapidly losing access to the vital mining regions that supplied the critical alloying metals, nickel, chromium, molybdenum. These essential additives, once abundant, became an unimaginable scarcity. Without them, the high-grade armor steel, the very essence of the King Tiger's protection, lost its crucial plastic properties. It became brittle, as fragile as cast iron. When an enemy shell struck a late production tank, the consequences were horrific. Even if the armor itself withstood the impact, even if it was not technically penetrated, the internal stresses could cause the plate to shatter, sending lethal shards of spall tearing through the crew compartment, turning the tank's own defense into a deadly trap for those within. The ambition that birthed the King Tiger, a machine designed to dominate, was ultimately undone by the very forces it sought to overcome. Its formidable power slowly, tragically, hollowed out from within. Inside the behemoth, a chilling reality unfolded. When struck, its inner surface would violently shed sharp shards of metal. These fragments, propelled by immense force, tore through the fighting compartment at terrifying velocities, maiming and killing the crew within. Ammunition detonated, instruments failed, mechanisms seized. The tank, designed to shield its occupants, transformed into a steel tomb, a brutal instrument of its own crew's demise. The relentless Allied bombing campaigns and the resulting transport disruptions strangled supply lines. Component deliveries faltered, then ceased. The situation grew so desperate that, in the final production runs, tank builders abandoned even the internal painting of the hulls. There simply was not enough time, nor were there sufficient materials. A raw, unfinished brutality defined these late-war machines. Externally, the tanks were initially coated with a special paste known as Zimmerit, engineered to protect against magnetic mines. Yet, in September of 1944, production of this crucial paste was abruptly halted. The official reason cited was a fabricated concern that Zimmerit might ignite under enemy fire. Subsequent tests unequivocally proved this to be false, a convenient untruth, but the order remained. The true motive lay deeper. Applying and curing the Zimmerit paste demanded several additional days, a luxury the frantic production lines of late 1944 could no longer afford. Every hour counted. Every delay was a strategic defeat. The creation of a single King Tiger consumed a staggering 120 tons of steel. For comparison, a Panther tank, a far more balanced machine capable of dynamic battlefield maneuvering, required only 77 tons. The King Tiger, a symbol of industrial might, swallowed colossal resources, yet delivered in return a surprisingly limited combat effectiveness, often bogged down by its own immense mass. Its primary armament, the formidable 88mm cannon, stood as a testament to German engineering. This weapon could pierce the armor of any enemy vehicle across vast distances, firing armor-piercing, high-explosive, and high-explosive anti-tank rounds. Its secondary defenses included two machine guns, one coaxially mounted with the main gun, the other positioned in the frontal hull armor. The combined machine gun ammunition load totaled 4,800 rounds. As the war neared its end, the supply infrastructure for German armored units collapsed entirely. Instances arose where repaired King Tigers, those symbols of overwhelming power, were fitted with 75mm guns salvaged from Panthers, replacing their intended 88mm cannons. This was an undeniable humiliation, a profound indignity for a machine conceived as the carrier of the most potent tank gun in the world. In early 1945, 10 King Tigers equipped with the Henschel turret underwent a significant conversion, repurposed as command vehicles. Their ammunition load was reduced from 84 to 63 rounds. The coaxial machine gun was removed, and the freed space was utilized for additional radio equipment, vital for coordinating increasingly desperate battlefield operations. This marked the final entry in the list of the King Tiger's serial modifications. The Third Reich had simply run out of time for further refinement. The war was closing in. In the summer of 1944, the King Tiger finally lumbered into combat. The initial production models were assigned to the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion, then stationed in France. The crews, filled with a mixture of apprehension and fervent hope, anticipated a turning point, a weapon that would defy the inevitable. They believed in its invincibility, unaware that this steel behemoth, forged from a nation's dwindling resources, was already a relic of a war it could not possibly win. It was a machine of immense power, born of desperation, destined to become a monument to a lost cause. Whispers had circulated across the front lines. Tales of a new, germane, stark reality of its deployment often felt far more mundane than the terrifying legends suggested. The organization of a German heavy tank battalion, while formidable, adhered to a straightforward, brutal logic. Each battalion comprised 3 companies, with every company further divided into 3 platoons. Within each platoon, 4 of these monstrous machines stood ready. Supplementing this corps were 2 command tanks per company, alongside 3 additional command tanks for battalion headquarters. In total, a single heavy tank battalion could field approximately 45 of these formidable vehicles, representing a devastating hammer blow when wielded with precision. The King Tiger's baptism of fire arrived on the 17th of July, 1944, near the French town of Colombelles in Normandy. Its inaugural mission, to crush an Allied breakthrough. German heavy tanks rolled into confrontation with American Shermans. The outcome shattered expectations, even those of the high command. 12 enemy vehicles remained, smoldering hulks on the battlefield, their steel skins pierced as if mere cardboard by the King Tiger's 88mm shells. A chilling realization settled upon the Allied forces. It appeared German engineers had forged an instrument of war without equal. But the Allies' response, swift and brutal, was already in motion. The very next day, the 18th of July, Operation Goodwood commenced. This was a colossal British offensive centered around the French city of Caen. Its primary weapon, however, was not armor. It was the sky itself. Above the positions of the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion, the heavens darkened, not with clouds, but with the suffocating shadow of hundreds of bombers. They unleashed tons of high explosives upon the German tanks that had, only yesterday, celebrated their devastating victory. Against this aerial onslaught, neither the King Tiger's formidable armor nor its potent main gun offered any solace. These steel titans burned as fiercely, as utterly, as any other tank. That day laid bare the profound vulnerability beneath the German armored might. Allied command quickly grasped the grim truth. In an open tank engagement, confronting a King Tiger was a near impossible proposition. Its frontal armor, a staggering 150 millimeters thick, could shrug off the impact of virtually any tank gun then in service. Its flanks, protected by 80 millimeters of sloped steel, presented a similarly impregnable barrier. American Shermans, armed with their 75 millimeter cannons, could only impotently scratch at this moving fortress. Until a truly adequate counterweapon could be deployed, Allied forces resorted to a single, desperate tactic. Upon encountering a King Tiger, every available ground-based fire asset would unleash its fury simultaneously. Tanks, anti-tank guns, and artillery batteries would rain down a blizzard of shells upon the German machine, a frantic hope that sheer volume might somehow disable it, or at least compel its crew to retreat. This was less a strategy for victory and more an act of sheer, desperate defiance. The tide began to turn in September of 1944 with the arrival of the American M-36 tank destroyer on the Western Front. This machine mounted a 90-millimeter gun, an instrument finally capable of penetrating the King Tiger's armor at realistic combat ranges. At long last, the Allies possessed a tool that could engage the German Goliath on something approaching equal terms. The whispers of invincibility that had once surrounded the King Tiger began to fade, replaced by the grim calculus of a war where even the most fearsome weapon could, eventually, be met. The nightmare for German tank crews did not unfold in the West. It was on the vast, unforgiving Eastern Front, against the relentless Red Army, that the formidable King Tigers met their true graveyard. Here, Soviet tank crews, through bitter experience and brilliant tactical innovation, forged a devastating counter-strategy, transforming Germany's most celebrated armored behemoth into a lumbering, vulnerable target. At the heart of the King Tiger's vulnerability lay its colossal mass. 69 tons of steel demanded a power plant of unparalleled strength. Yet the Maybach engine, a 700-horsepower unit inherited from the considerably lighter Panther, proved woefully inadequate for this monstrous burden. On paved roads, the tank could scarcely achieve a maximum speed of 38 kilometers per hour. Across the broken terrain of the Eastern Front, this pace plummeted to a mere 13 kilometers per hour. Ascending even gentle inclines, the machine crawled with agonizing slowness, its engine groaning under the immense strain. The transmission and engine perpetually overheated, succumbing to the relentless, impossible demands placed upon them. These complex mechanisms required a delicate touch, an almost surgical precision in operation, which was utterly unattainable amidst the chaos and violence of real combat. Crews faced an impossible dilemma: either preserve the fragile machinery and risk their lives to enemy fire, or maneuver aggressively, knowing full well that mechanical failure was an inevitable, almost guaranteed consequence. The King Tiger's tracks, designed with an ambition to reduce ground pressure, brought their own set of catastrophic surprises. Its designers opted for ultra-wide track links, a feature intended to distribute the immense weight more evenly. But the drive sprockets, the very teeth that engaged these massive tracks, wore down completely after a paltry 250 to 350 kilometers of travel. With worn sprockets, the track links would slip and grind, the tank losing what little mobility it possessed, often grinding to a halt in the most exposed positions. Transportation itself presented a distinct and persistent nightmare. The sheer bulk of the King Tiger necessitated two complete sets of tracks, the wide combat tracks and narrower transport tracks, specifically designed for rail travel. Crucially, these transport tracks were none other than the standard combat tracks from the lighter Panther tank. Before every single loading onto a railway flat car, the crew was forced to undertake a grueling, time-consuming procedure of swapping out the massive tracks. This arduous task, performed under the ever-present threat of enemy air attack or partisan ambush, consumed precious hours, often days, rendering the tank immobile and vulnerable long before it ever reached the front lines. Bridges spanning the rivers of Europe became an entirely separate class of adversary for the King Tiger. The vast majority of these vital crossings were simply not engineered to withstand the crushing weight of a 70-ton behemoth. During the desperate retreats, German forces frequently found themselves compelled to abandon perfectly functional machines on riverbanks, utterly incapable of ferrying them across the water barrier. The very act of evacuating a damaged King Tiger transformed into a logistical nightmare, demanding specialized heavy recovery vehicles and an immense, coordinated effort, often under direct enemy fire, further draining resources and morale. Soviet commanders, with their keen battlefield intuition, swiftly grasped the inherent weaknesses of this formidable yet flawed adversary. The solution, they realized, was not to meet its frontal armor head-on, but to exploit its crippling immobility. The key lay in forcing the King Tiger to maneuver, to engage it in the brutal intimacy of close-quarters combat, stripping it of the very advantage its powerful main gun offered from a safe distance. This precise strategy, honed by grim experience, was brilliantly executed by Soviet tank crews in August of 1944 at the pivotal Sandomierz bridgehead. The unforgiving August sun beat down relentlessly upon the Polish earth as the Wehrmacht's 501st Heavy Tank Battalion received its orders to advance towards Sandomierz. Weeks earlier, Soviet forces had audaciously crossed the Vistula River, establishing a precarious but vital foothold on its western bank, a bridgehead that would soon become the crucible where the myth of the King Tiger's invincibility would be shattered. Deep within the German war machine, a new apex predator stirred. The High Command, for reasons shrouded in tactical calculation, had withheld its most formidable weapon from the Eastern Front, the newest King Tigers, tanks of unprecedented power, machines the Red Army had never before encountered. Their very existence was a closely guarded secret, a testament to engineering ambition and destructive capability. Then, on the 13th of August 1944, the order came. A formidable column of these heavy German tanks rumbled forward, spearheading an attack. An almost arrogant confidence pulsed through the crews. They believed in the absolute superiority of their machines, each a mobile fortress clad in seemingly impenetrable armor, each armed with a main gun capable of obliterating any Soviet vehicle from distances exceeding 2 kilometers. Success, they were convinced, was not merely probable, it was guaranteed. But Soviet commanders had prepared a brutal surprise. Instead of a head-on collision, an engagement where the German behemoths would undoubtedly hold every advantage, the Red Army meticulously crafted a counterstroke, forcing the battle onto their own terms. T-34-85 tanks and the formidable heavy IS-2 assault guns took up concealed positions, melting into the landscape, utilizing every fold of the terrain, every cluster of village buildings, every shadow cast by the Polish summer sun. They waited. As the German column, oblivious to the impending doom, lumbered deeper into the trap, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, a sudden, thunderous roar shattered the deceptive calm. Soviet tanks unleashed a torrent of fire from point-blank range, negating the King Tiger's vaunted armor advantage. At such close quarters, the sheer thickness of the German steel no longer offered absolute immunity. The critical flaw in the King Tiger's design, its vulnerable side armor, became agonizingly apparent, proving susceptible to the 85mm shells of the T-34s. Even the frontal protection, considered impregnable, buckled and shattered under the devastating impact of the IS-2's 122mm cannons. The engagement transformed in mere moments into a hellish nightmare for the German tank crews. Their massive, ponderous machines, designed for distant, decisive engagements, found themselves ensnared in a close-quarters melee. The King Tiger's turrets, slow to traverse, struggled to respond to the relentless, multi-directional fire. Their powerful engines, straining under the impossible demands of rapid maneuvering, began to overheat, spewing acrid smoke. Their wide tracks, meant for traversing harsh terrain, bogged down in the soft, yielding soil of the Polish fields, turning the magnificent war machines into static targets. One after another, the King Tigers ignited, consumed by the precise, relentless strikes of Soviet shells, their hulks becoming pyres against the horizon. When the smoke finally cleared, the battlefield bore witness to the devastating aftermath: the shattered remnants of 24 German tanks. Among them lay 3 King Tigers, initially misidentified in the first hurried reports as the less formidable Panthers. The Soviet commanders, in the immediate chaos of victory, had no way of knowing they had just confronted the enemy's newest, most secret weapon. The true nature of their triumph would only become clear later, during a meticulous inspection of the captured trophies. Among the abandoned and damaged machines, 3 specific tanks stood out, bearing the distinctive hull numbers 102, 234, and 502. The tank designated 502 garnered particular fascination. Discovered almost perfectly intact within a village courtyard, it presented an almost unbelievable sight. Its fuel tanks were full, its ammunition racks complete, and its complex mechanisms were fully operational. The crew, in a moment of sheer terror or panic, had simply abandoned their post, fleeing the battlefield and leaving behind a priceless example of enemy technology. This particular behavior, a swift abandonment of the mighty King Tiger, became surprisingly common. The sheer mass and complexity of the machine, while intimidating to the enemy, also instilled a profound sense of dread in its own crews. At the slightest threat of encirclement, or the merest hint of damage to the running gear, German tankers often chose to escape the vehicle rather than risk being trapped within its steel confines, a coffin of their own making. 6 more King Tigers into oblivion. The combat debut of Germany's much-vaunted new machine on the Eastern Front had dissolved into an unmitigated disaster. In just 2 days of brutal fighting, the Wehrmacht had lost more King Tigers than it had throughout the entire campaign in Normandy. This pivotal engagement, a clash of steel and strategy, rapidly became the stuff of legend, a brutal, undeniable truth laid bare. A powerful legend took root in the shattered landscape of war, whispering that Ferdinand Porsche himself, or perhaps his son, perished inside the very first King Tiger tank destroyed in battle. The truth, stark and unromantic, painted a different picture. Both men survived the war, living for many years to spend fortunes amassed through lucrative military contracts with Hitler's regime. Yet, the dramatic tale of the creator falling with his creation became etched deep into the collective memory, a testament to the human need for narratives that transcend mere fact. The captured tank, bearing the identification number 502, was immediately spirited away to the rear lines. It was a prize of immense strategic value, a technological marvel torn from the enemy's grasp. Soviet engineers, their minds alight with curiosity and urgency, now possessed an unprecedented opportunity. They could meticulously dissect every facet of the formidable machine, uncovering its strengths and, crucially, its inherent weaknesses. This specific king tiger, a silent witness to the brutal clash of empires, stands today, preserved in the Armored Vehicle Museum in Kubinka, just outside Moscow. There, visitors can gaze upon a genuine trophy from a legendary struggle, a tangible piece of history. Another king tiger, marked 102, embarked on a different journey. It was dispatched to a proving ground, destined for a series of experimental firing trials. The raw, brutal combat experience gleaned from the Sandomierz bridgehead had unequivocally demonstrated a vital truth. With astute tactical deployment, Soviet tanks possessed the capability to vanquish even the mighty king tigers. The secret to victory lay not in brute force alone, but in the meticulous orchestration of battle. This meant a radical shift in engagement philosophy. Ambushes replaced suicidal frontal assaults. Shots were aimed at the vulnerable flanks rather than attempting to pierce the impenetrable frontal armor. Close-quarters combat became the preferred method, disrupting the king tiger's long-range advantage, forcing it into a chaotic brawl where its immense size became a liability. This tactical evolution turned the tide, transforming seemingly invincible machines into targets. Perhaps the only Soviet tank capable of truly confronting the king tiger on equal terms, under virtually any conditions, was the heavy IS-2. Its massive 122mm gun possessed the raw, penetrating power to breach German armor at realistic combat distances, a terrifying capability that instilled fear in even the most seasoned panzer crews. Beyond the dedicated tank destroyers, Soviet self-propelled artillery units, armed with their own formidable large-caliber weapons, the Su-100, the Su-122, and the Su-152, also achieved devastating results, their shells ripping through the thickest steel. By the close of 1944, German records painted a grim picture. 74 king tigers had been lost across all fronts. Of these, a mere 17 could be salvaged, repaired, and returned to the fray. The vast majority were irrevocably destroyed or captured by the relentless advance of Allied forces. This stark disparity between losses and recoverable tanks illuminated the king tiger's Achilles heel. Its sheer immensity and mechanical complexity rendered it virtually impossible to evacuate and repair under battlefield conditions. A crippled king tiger was often a lost king tiger, a monument to its own logistical burden. The final major engagements to feature the king tigers were the desperate Ardennes offensive and the brutal battles around Lake Balaton. In the environs of the Hungarian lake, the Wehrmacht, in a last gasp of defiance, launched its final major offensive of the Second World War. Between January and March of 1945, 19 of these colossal tanks met their end in the mud and snow of Hungary. By the 1st of March, a mere 226 king tigers remained in service with the Wehrmacht and the Waffen-SS. A significant number of these remaining behemoths were concentrated in East Prussia, bracing for the inevitable Soviet onslaught. Within the beleaguered defenses of Königsberg, heavy tank battalions from the Das Reich Division, along with the 511 and 505 Panzer battalions, deployed their king tigers. By this stage of the war, their role had shifted dramatically. They were no longer spearheading offensives, but were instead utilized in small groups, primarily as static firing points. Anchored in defensive positions, their immense armor and powerful guns transformed them into formidable, immovable fortresses capable of unleashing devastating fire. On April 21st, during a fierce Soviet assault, the combined firepower of a single king tiger and 2 self-propelled guns managed to knock out 12 Soviet tanks, a fleeting demonstration of their destructive potential even in their twilight. Over the course of just 1 week of fighting, commencing on April 13th, the 511 Battalion alone claimed the destruction of 102 enemy vehicles, a brutal tally in a war that was already irrevocably lost. The 505th Heavy Tank Battalion, once a formidable spearhead against Soviet combat vehicles, saw its last desperate stand in the besieged city of Pillau. Today, that location is known as Baltiysk, within Russia's Kaliningrad Oblast, a quiet echo of a ferocious past. As the war's final weeks bled into the inferno of Berlin's defense, every available machine, from basic training models to experimental prototypes, even a unique design from Porsche, was pressed into service, a desperate gamble against overwhelming odds. Then, on May 2, 1945, amidst the rubble near the Spandau Bridge, the last operational King Tiger tank met its fate. A colossal machine, once a symbol of German engineering prowess and a harbinger of terror, now a smoldering wreck. Hitler's unfulfilled hope, his vision of an unstoppable armored force, burned to ashes alongside the Third Reich itself. The King Tiger, a titan of steel, became a monument to a dream consumed by the fires of its own ambition.